specifically social psychology. So I decided to do my talk on manipulation, everybody's favorite. So I'm going to talk about four main things today. One, what is manipulation? Two, why do we do it? Three, why should we stop? And four, how do we stop? So without further ado, let's get into it. So how would we define, or how should we define manipulation? According to Cambridge Dictionary, it is the art of controlling someone or something to your own advantage, often unfairly or dishonestly. So I like to use the analogy of a puppet master to explain this. So puppet masters, they create strings and attach it to something else and coerce or persuade that thing in order to get what they want. And this is done to achieve one's own personal goals. So there are three aspects of manipulation I want to explain a little further, specifically the mechanics of how it works. So I'll introduce you all to something called ego states. And they basically explain kind of the motivations behind what we do. So there are three main ones that are agreed upon by most psychologists: the parent, adult, and child ego state. So the apparent ego state focuses on traditional values, mostly the things that we learn from our parents and our guardians, whereas the child is more concerned with short-term pleasure and much more spontaneous. The adult is, you would say, the healthy equilibrium between that. It focuses on the here and the now, more concerned with the logical next steps in our day-to-day life. So I would like to make a disclaimer here. Everything that I'm going to talk about today happens unconsciously for the most part in most people. And another thing I would like to say is manipulation often manifests in personal relationships. So with your friends and with your family, it's not necessarily a stranger you see on the street, which ties back into this is happening unconsciously, not necessarily something you plan. So why do we do it? What's the point of this? There are two sides to this. Control. When we manipulate or coerce other people, we're put in a less vulnerable position. We're more concerned with what we want instead of being vulnerable and showing ourselves to other people. But the other side of that is fear. We don't know if we're going to be accepted for who we are, so we put up a facade, and that facade manifests as manipulating other people. So in order to do that, we communicate in roundabout ways, so we get what we want. We don't have to give a lot to get it. So now I'm going to talk about some common examples of how this would show up in our day-to-day life. So there are many games that we play: underworld games, party games, marble games, so many. But the ones I'm going to talk about are based on a book I read for this. And it's also called Games People Play. Incredible book if you're interested in the subject. But it really shows us how we interact with other people. So to explain these games, I'm going to refer to the people as players, because again, it is a game. So without further ado, let's get into it. First one, now I've got you the son of a, and you can fill in the blank. This game is played between two players. So player one and player two. Let's say player one and player two have agreed upon something. Perhaps player two is going to fix something in player one's house. And player two does the thing that he's going to do, comes back, and all of a sudden tells player one that, no, it's not going to be $40 anymore, it's going to be $150. Now, obviously, this is pretty ridiculous because they agreed upon this price. And now, player one is justified in being a little mad at player two. But they're not just going to be mad, they're going to display unlimited rage. Not just because of the way they've been slighted, but because of the driver that cut them off that morning, because of the bad test they had last week, because of the bad food at the restaurant 4 years ago, who knows? They're going to unleash all their rage. And really, player one is secretly happy that player two provoked them in this way, because now they're able to let all their emotions out. And that's really the point of this game. You know, you've harbored so much, and now you have this opportunity to unleash a little, so unleash a lot. And on to the next game. Why don't you yes but? This is played sure a lot of us play this game when we have a bad math test or we're failing math, and we have a group of friends, and they're all giving suggestions of what we can do to do better. For example, why don't you get a tutor? Yes, but I did that and I still got this F on this test. Again, the player really does know that all the suggestions that their friends are going to give them, they've already thought of them. But the point of this game is not to get an answer, no. The point of this game is to reassure and gratify yourself that yes, indeed, there's no way to fix this. Uproar. This is a game played between two players trying to avoid some type of intimacy. Now, it can get pretty intense, but the basic gist of it is I get mad at you, you get mad at me, we walk away and we both slam the door. Seriously, that's actually how it works out in my research. And the point of this is because the two people aren't able to be around each other without getting angry. Because again, there's something that they're trying to hide away, not able to express, so they have to express it in a different way. And lastly, cops and robbers. So here I'm going to paint a picture, a common picture. Imagine you're playing hide and seek with a little child, maybe a 5-year-old. Now, when you're doing this, you're not going to find the child right away, even though they're going to have a really bad hiding spot, probably behind the curtains. No, you're going to be a little slow at finding them, so they give you little hints. But of course, you're not never going to find them because then there's no fun, there's no suspense. What you're going to do is, creep away a little slowly to the table and say, oh, I can't find anyone. And then the child will give you hints and then you'll be able to find them. And this is basically what Cops and Robbers is. It's played really in criminal activities situations. Again, not all criminals are playing this game, but a good amount of them are, in which they're not playing just for the money or just for the fame, just for the glory. They're playing because they kind of like the suspense of almost being caught, but just getting away at the last minute. So, that's all my games. Why should we stop? Those kind of sounded fun, didn't they? So why should we stop playing them? Well, games can be fun to play, but they prevent us from showing our true selves. Why? Because it's almost like we turn into different people. When we're playing Why Don't You Yes, but when we're playing Now I've Got You, Son of a, and you fill in the blank, we're not really being ourselves. We're just portraying what we want people to see so we can get what we want, so we don't have to be vulnerable. And that's really the reason why we should stop, because vulnerability is one of the best parts of us being human. Without it, we aren't human. So, how do we stop? 3 ways I'm gonna give you. 1, awareness. Being present in the here and the now, and not necessarily what you can get out of or how you can benefit out of a situation or interaction with somebody else. Being cognizant of what you're doing and the motivations behind your actions. Number 2, being spontaneous. Doing and feeling what you want to feel instead of doing and feeling what you're taught to feel. It's almost this battle between being autonomous and just going with what tradition and culture teaches you to do. And finally, being intimate. I like to explain this as being almost childlike. Why? Because children are probably the most vulnerable, the most free to be intimate ever, because they're free, they take risks, they don't care what happens, they just want to explore. And it's hard to do this because we know better. We've lived life a little bit, we know what's out there. But in order to be ourselves, to be authentic, and to not manipulate and coerce other people, we have to be like this. We have to be vulnerable, we have to be free, we have to take risks, we have to be intimate with other people, and be prepared to make new connections. So, to conclude, games are lots of fun. They're awesome. It's awesome to learn about, awesome to do, but if you want to build connections, if you want to make lasting relationships, if you want to live a little, if you want to take a risk, you got to be vulnerable. And in order to be vulnerable, you have to stop playing games. Like I said before, vulnerability is what makes us human. It's what allows us to be able to go from being us to being the person we could be tomorrow to being who we are meant to be. So, to conclude,